Welcome to this special video program from Humanity's Moment of Choice, featuring members of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle. The theme, nonviolence, is the subject of a major activist campaign by the Evolutionary Leaders Evolutionary Partners Network, an initiative of the Source of Synergy Foundation, highlighting in January 2025, especially around many of the events that we'll be telling you about in just a moment. As many of you know, Humanity's Moment of Choice has been running for 5 years as broadcast specials from VoiceAmerica Radio on the Empowerment Channel. I'm Dr. Kurt Johnson of the Evolutionary Leaders Synergy Circles and Collaboratories, and I've been privileged to host those programs. Now, Humanity's Moment of Choice has annually had 50 to 100,000 listeners. So we're so grateful to our Evolutionary Leader participants and to our listening audience for that half-decade of success. In 2025, Voice America recently discontinued those services. So now Humanity's Moment of Choice is in a transition to a new media location that we'll be telling you about very soon. But in that interim, the Evolutionary Partners Network and other elements of the Evolutionary Leaders, especially the new media collaboratory, elected to create some timely and dynamic programming in January 2025 on the overall theme of nonviolence, synchronizing with the major events nationally and internationally that are related to nonviolence, like the Martin Luther King holidays, in which so many major evolutionary leaders will have a part, and also the upcoming United States presidential inauguration. So to embrace this programming, we've created this Humanity's Moment of Choice special on nonviolence, and we're sharing it on video at the Evolutionary Leaders YouTube channel. So thanks for joining us, and I want to introduce you now to the Reverend Deborah Moldow, Director of the Evolutionary Leaders. We'll be hosting an amazing array of guests from the Evolutionary Leaders on this important and timely discussion of nonviolence. So over now to the Reverend Deborah Moldow and her guests.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Kurt Johnson. Thank you for your introduction, and thank you for all the work that you do in the Evolutionary Leaders Circle, especially as coordinator of our synergy circles, which are our action arms, and also for creating these online programs so that we can share our work with one another and with others. So the Evolutionary Leaders Circle is dedicated to conscious evolution, meaning what we do can affect our future. And we come together to synergize our efforts and uplift one another, inspire one another, and help amplify what we're doing by our mutual support. So we had an idea a couple of years ago to start something new, and that's called the Evolutionary Partners Network. You can see the Evolutionary Partners Network at evolutionaryleaders.net/partners. And what it is an experiment. So can we bring together organizations, conscious businesses, and movements that are aligned in our worldview, but have very different activities and agendas? And can we do what we do with individuals in the evolutionary leaders community, do that with these larger groups? In other words, synergize our efforts, uplift one another, and amplify what we are doing by collective support. So it's been a very interesting journey to explore just how to do that. And recently, we've started highlighting various themes that are important to our members that we can collectively uplift. And for the month of January 2025, we have chosen nonviolence. This is something that seems to be so underappreciated in our world today as a concept and as a practice. So for this program, we've brought together some members of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle and also the Evolutionary Partners Network with their organizations who have dedicated much of their work to nonviolence. And I know that every one of them is going to inspire you today. So I would like to start us off by asking each one of them to introduce themselves and give us just a few words about not only who they are, but why nonviolence is important in our world. Why is this something that you have chosen to put your heart into? So let's start with John Raymer, who is the founder of the Compassion Games and One World. So welcome, John. Tell us more about who you are and why nonviolence.
Well, first off, thank you, Deborah and Kurt. It's a joy to be a part of such a remarkable community. Well, January is the right month because that is, this year in particular, the 30th anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King's Day of Service. And he asked in the title of his book, where do we go from here? Chaos or community? Good question. It seems like we're at a pivotal moment. And, like the word nonprofit defines what you're not, nonviolence has a similar thing. So I want to say what we're for. And we're for compassion. We're about inspiring others to channel their empathy into actionable service. That we can actually demonstrate that we as a community can change the course of history here. So it's a privilege and an honor to be associated with Dr. King this way. And we're a part of that bridge from what has been to an unknown future that we're going to. And for me, that bridge is a bridge built with compassion. And I'm committed to evolving myself and being in service of that greater whole. So that's why, for me, the idea of nonviolence is so important. And I'm, grateful for the opportunity to serve, unite humanity, restore Mother Earth.
Beautiful, John. Thank you. And we'll be hearing more from you later about how we can all take part in that effort. So next we have Rick Ulfik, who is the founder of We the World. Rick and I have known one another for a long time, and he has always put nonviolence front and center. So tell us why, Rick.
Thank you so much. And as Deborah mentioned, my name is Rick Ulfik, and I'm the founder of We the World and the We campaign at we.net. So it's all about we, right? And I'm also the co-creator of 11 Days of Global Unity and the creator of MLK Manifesting the Dream at we.net/MLK. And that's pretty relevant to what we're talking about here. Nonviolence was practiced and promoted all during Martin Luther King Jr.'s campaigns for civil rights and social justice. And, We the World honors his crucial work and his life with this program that we're talking about, MLK Manifesting the Dream. And of course, it's all part of what John and the Compassion Games has been doing with MLK, Muhammad Ali, and the 40 Days of Peace and Greatness. So I would say regarding nonviolence that over time, consistent practice of nonviolence from personal interactions to international relations offers the possibility of building a society that embodies we consciousness, we consciousness for Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream of beloved community. So I guess I and we see this relationship with consistent practice of nonviolence and creating what people might say is peace on earth, right? With this dream, and of course using the idea of we consciousness to achieve that. So, like we always say in our we team meetings, let's go from a me society, like an M, to a we society. And that's why we launched we.net. So thank you.
Thank you, Rick. And of course, Dr. King was inspired by the great Mahatma Gandhi and learned his practice from Gandhi so that it was not just a theory, but something that could be put into action. And that's actually what's positive about the term nonviolence. It looks like a negative word, but what I've realized over the years is that it's telling us what to do. to drop all of our inner and outer violence and move into compassion in action and being we in the world. So I also want to introduce our next guest, who is Dr. Marty K. Casey, and she has been doing this work at the grassroots level in her community in a powerful way. And she is the founder of the UnGUN Institute. So if you will, nonviolence ungunned, right? That's a beginning. So please tell us more about who you are and what nonviolence means to you, Marty K. Casey.
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me today. What an honor it is, and especially to be on a panel such as this. You guys are the best who's doing this work, and I'm honored to be here. When I think about nonviolence, the first thing that I want to offer individuals to think of: what if nonviolence was the new wealth? Can you think about that for a moment? What if we took that in mentally, of understanding that nonviolence is the new wealth? And the reason being is because, one, it keeps you healthy. It also allows you to really put the focus on the things that matters to you the most, for self, for your family, for your community, and everyone is enriched. Everyone is happy, healthy, and in a peaceful state of mind. You can't get any more wealthier than that. So when I think of nonviolence, I'm really trying to push that agenda and making sure people understand that a lot of times violence happens because we're trying to obtain some form of richness, of taking over through power of someone else, taking from someone else, thinking this gives us more. But if you can just switch that a little bit and understand, the wealthiest people are the people who are in control of themselves and honor life and willing to connect with others to become the most wealthiest, healthiest people mentally on earth. So I'm excited about that. And I hope that you all join me with pushing that agenda in 2025. And I have to agree with John when he said January is the month to start. This is the beginning of the new year. And for Dr. King's birthday to be celebrated in January, I'm excited about it because my birthday is also in January. So I get super, super excited, and I feel like, Dr. King is just like, the the wind beneath my wings pushing me to do this work. And this is why I created UnGUN Institute. The one thing that I really need everyone to understand when you hear that word ungun, you are thinking of guns, but I don't want you to think of the gun in the sense of the a handgun or that or the artillery of that. Even though it is also has something to do with it, but it starts with the bullets that are in your heart. See, if I can help you ungun, release, remove those bullets from your heart of things that have happened in your life that you had no control over, and maybe some things have been from bad decisions. I don't know. No judgment here. However, if we can remove those bullets, then it will keep you from being in the state of mind of being hurt, because hurt people hurt people, healed people heal people. So we ungun the heart to heal the mind so that the body can do the right thing. That's what ungun is all about. It's a very simple method, but I enjoy creating these tools and techniques and doing workshops all around the community and beyond, because it really is making a difference with so many people. When you think about what just happened here in the United States just last week in two of prominent cities of New Orleans and Las Vegas, how sad, how tremendously sad that was. But I want us to push past the end result and trauma trace it back to the mental state of mind of those individuals. How long were they hurt and dealing with something that needed to be ungunned mentally, physically, and spiritually? And we missed the mark with them. If we could reach people in advance when they are hurting, we can make a difference of how people show up so that they don't continue to hurt others.
Thank you so much. Beautiful work that you're doing. So important. If we can start by cultivating nonviolence in our own hearts, in our own selves, in our own part of the world, then we can begin to spread it to our civilization, which is seriously in need of ungunning on a major scale. But here we are in January 2025, and we have some exciting things coming up, events around Dr. King's birthday and more. So let's hear more about this, starting with Rick Ulfik. So Rick, you have been celebrating the work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. for how long?
Wow, that's a good question. I think since I first heard about uh, Dr. King's work, it's probably decades, but in a very concentrated way more recently, especially in collaboration with John Raymer and the Compassion Games, we have initiated this program called MLK, Manifesting the Dream. So, and we invite people to get involved with that. So, you want to participate as a host or other, just attending events, you can go to we.net/MLK. So through MLK Manifesting the Dream, we have this annual program that starts basically on his birthday, January 15th, and extends through February. And we are convening a national convergence of more than 30 broadcasts and programs with over 10,000 people doing various kinds of community service activities to carry forward the work and legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. Regarding ending poverty, racism, militarism, and hyper consumerism, all while promoting nonviolence and building beloved community. So
Wow. Chris,
yeah.
how do you get so many people to participate? How do you do that? And can you give us some examples of some of the kinds of programs that people will be doing during this time to actually manifest the dream in their way, in their community?
Yes. Yes. And actually, it really revolves about having an amazing crackerjack team of people. So when we have a few of these annual convergences, um, and um, and of course in partnership with like Unity Earth, Compassion Games, and um, all the work of the evolutionary leaders and what Kurt Johnson does from 4:30 a.m. to midnight at least. So so in partnership, we have these convergences going on. So like 11 Days of Global Unity in September, and other ones. But the one we're focused on now is and MLK manifesting the dream. And so so we have programs featuring visionary leaders like Audrey Kitagawa, um, Diane Williams, you, Deborah Moldow, and many others. Um, we have programs featuring some of the members of the Foundation for Ethics and Meaning, which was originally founded by Rabbi Michael Lerner, who has passed. But the people who are focused on the politics of meaning are going to be doing a dedicated program and panel focused on MLK. Then there's a church that I regularly play piano at.
And you're
Uh,
really good at that.
Thank you. And you and I have collaborated musically in the past many times in amazing places like church. And St. Mark's Church calls me for these special services at St. And this is in Manhattan. And um, I just finished playing at the Christmas Eve service at St. Mark's, and I got this idea. Let's do an interview with the rector at St. Mark's Church. They do so much community service activities. Um, they feed the poor. They do um, an extended program ending gun violence specifically. So thank you, Dr. Marty, for your work with UnGUN, which is applied to all of these things. So St. Mark's does this all the time. Also, they have a special uh, event coming up that has to do with immigration and people who are very vulnerable at this point because of their immigration status and that kind of thing. So all these things. So we're going to do a special interview program to introduce St. Mark's Church to the world through the MLK uh, uh, MLK manifesting the dream.
So
So
what would you recommend that people can do in their own communities to be part of your campaign for manifesting the dream?
yeah, so people can host their own events or their own programs. we're already putting out the word about that, and that's why we already have 30 of these about to happen. So it's really incredible. And last year we had I think we calculated something like 18,000 participants for MLK Manifesting the Dream. So we're trying to break that record this year. That's part of and everybody's primed to do it. But I also want to just bring up some other general stuff about nonviolence. Is that okay? It's because it's part of the reason why I'm so committed to nonviolence. It really has to do with my practice of nonviolent communication, otherwise known as NVC. Then nonviolent communication was developed by Marshall Rosenberg over 40 years ago. And I'm just thinking now, I wonder if his path crossed with MLK. I'm pretty sure it did with Gandhi, but I don't know about that. But in any case, Marshall Rosenberg developed NVC, and since then, thousands, literally thousands of NVC trainers have disseminated the practice and philosophy behind nonviolent communication to literally millions of people worldwide. Marshall?
In a nutshell, what that is, so that people can start to do that who aren't familiar with the
Right. Yes. So, but I just wanted to mention that he joined our yeah, he advised, he joined We the World's advisory board and helped to launch 11 Days of Global Unity in 2004, which is incredible, right? So through his connection with that, I met Tom Bond, who's the founder of the New York Center for Nonviolent Communication, and I became a workshop facilitator of NVC. And for people to know more about that, they could actually go to that website, nycnvc.org, and they can learn.
But
Well, I'll give you
an example, like something you might say that has hidden violence in it that you could transform to saying in a nonviolent way.
right. So here's my the big thing that affects me, and the way makes me think about uh, nonviolence on a global scale, is that according to Marshall Rosenberg and his trainers around the world, there are a set of about 100 universal needs that all people share, and you can easily relate to all of these. Physical needs like air, water, food, shelter, but also needs that are values like connection, love, dignity, respect, security, meaning, peace. So the idea is that through research of over the decades, these 100 needs and values are actually shared by all humans, no matter what their country, language, religion, ethnic group, or culture. And it is the actions that people take to meet their needs that are not shared by everyone. And those actions are what can come into conflict, not the needs, needs that people share cannot ever come into conflict. So when people are figuring out about the needs, I mean the actions to make to meet their needs, um, there are always ways to figure out alternative actions that people can take to make sure that both sides in a conflict have their needs met. So that knowing that and practicing that as I have over a few decades at this point, and hearing the stories from people around the world about this, that's why I think Peace on Earth and Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream of beloved community is possible. Nonviolence is key to expanding we consciousness, so we can go from from a me society to a we society, right? As I always
Yes.
talk about.
And
Does that make sense?
manifest the dream. So the nonviolent communication is not only about how we speak to one another, but how we behave toward one another.
Exactly.
Beautiful, Rick. So thank you. And anyone who wants to participate in manifesting the dream, go to we.net. It's the simplest URL to remember.
Exactly.
And you can be part of this beautiful campaign and participate. Thank you so much, Rick. And all that you said about how we move from me to we. This is a perfect segue to the work of Dr. Marty K. Casey and the UnGUN Institute, because she goes deep into the personal and brings that into community empowerment. So, Marty, tell us more about what you do.
Okay, well, thank you. And thank you, Rick. Rick, as you was just talking and you was speaking about, from the me to the we, I'm thinking of the WE, and that is wealth and evolutionizing wealth, right? Wealth evolutionizing. I don't know. We decided something with that. But what I want to share, and thank you, Deborah, for Rev Deb, for even sharing that, because you hit it you hit the nail on the head. It starts with self. Then it moves into family, and then from family into community. And that's part of the formula, if you will, of what we use at UnGUN Institute, helping individuals to really get to that place. May peace prevail on earth? Well, yes, it can, and it will. But there's steps that we have to take in order for that to happen. So if we're looking to get to that place of peace prevailing on earth, it has to start with self. Then it has to move into how you influence family and those you love around you, and then how your family sits inside of a community, and how community is affected when something takes place. So putting forth that effort, to me, brings us to the highest level of humanity when we do that, and we do it right. And so I want to share with you all a little bit of a formula to help us to get to that place of taking on a nonviolence lifestyle. So this may be something you may want to quickly write down or what have you, if you want to kind of join along with this. And so the first thing that I want us to do is understand the base. What is our base? Our base is love. It's kind of like what Rick was talking about. There's just some things that we, as humans, that we all desire to want to have, right? Love is definitely one of them. So that is the base. And we are born in love, and we are born with love. What happens is that when we experience certain things in life, sometimes we don't get to choose, who our family members are. They were, and our sometimes our circumstances, and we're born into situations. I was one of them. I was born into violence, if you will. My mother and father, there was a lot of personal violence that was going on in my home that my brother and I witnessed. And then my great grandmother on my father's side was unfortunately shot and killed in her home. And so experiencing this at 8 years old, there was some things that reframed my mind of how people showed up towards one another, and that's why I do this work today. So I want us to get back to the basics. Can we return back to love? Not just choose love, because love chose us. We walked away from it. Can we return back to it? So getting back to that base, how does that show up in self? How do you take the time out to love on yourself on a daily basis? So be thinking about that. Write that down. And then I want you to think about, how do you show up and love your family on a daily basis? And then how do you show up and love community? So then we're going to move to the next part, is the tool. What tool do we use? It has to be nonviolence. That is the only tool that we need. And if we choose the tool of nonviolence, no matter what it is that we create, no matter what is happening to us in that moment, if we know love is our base and we use the tool of nonviolence, every situation that occurs, that happens, we will be able to keep ourselves safe and everyone around us safe too. See, being able to create, being able to create the solution to the problem versus being the problem, that's the difference between being violent or nonviolent. I choose to be a part of the solution. So no matter what happens, even if someone is angry with me, I know that if I communicate and I use the tool of nonviolence, we're going to communicate effectively, even if we decide to agree to disagree. But we're going to still walk away with love and dignity and respect. And that's what I want us to look at. So as you use that tool, how do you use that tool and that tool of nonviolence with self? Right? Bring no harm to self. Bring no harm. How do you use that tool, nonviolence, in your family? When there's a disagreement between you and your children, or you and your mom or your dad, how do you use that tool of nonviolence? Is that, you know what? I need to love you from afar for a while. I still love you, but right now my boundaries is set to where I feel like we're in such a great grieving disagreement that we need to put some time and some space between us. It's okay to do that. It's so okay to do that. And how do you do that even in your community? For some, they go, "Oh, I don't even watch the news. I can't take that in. I have to kind of cut it off. I can't hear that all the time." That's setting those boundaries that you need in order for you to be your best, highest self. So remember, the tool is nonviolence. And now what's the target? What is the target? The target has to be all humans. All humans, not some, not the ones you love, not the ones you look alike, not the ones you live next door to, not the ones who have just as much money as you or know the people that you know. No, it has to be everyone. That has to be our target market. So no matter who we are actually engaging with, that we are around, we should be willing to be a helping, loving vessel to one another. We don't get to choose all the time who we sit on the airplane with, right? But if that airplane was to do a nosedive, I would like to think the person I'm sitting next to is willing to help me, pray for me, hold my hand, and I would be willing to do the same. Sometimes those circumstances we are in line with, we don't even know who we're going to need. You don't know you're going to need that person in the grocery store that you don't even know because something just happened. But if that base is love, it doesn't matter whether you know them or not. What matters is that you know that's the target market. And as a human, I'm here for you and you're here for me. If we just know that, we're already, you see how that wealth is rising in humanity? And then the last but not least, what's our goal? What's our common goal? It's reaching peace. May peace prevail on earth? Yes, it may, and it can, and it will. If we all decide that that's our common goal. And when we do that, that's how we build wealth, starting with self, extending that to family, and pushing that out through our community. So who can do this? Where do we do this? And when do we do this? And how do we do this? Who is everyone? Isn't that the good news? Isn't that the good news? It doesn't matter who you are. You get to do this. You can be one of the wealthiest human beings on earth because nonviolence is the new wealth. So this includes you. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican. It doesn't even matter if you're black or white. It doesn't matter. None of those things matter. Only thing that matters is that you're human and you're saying, I want to do this. So that includes you. Where do we do this? Get ready. We're going to do this everywhere. Everywhere we go, everywhere, wherever your feet are, that's where you're going to do this work. Wherever you are in that moment. And when do we do it? You know what? The clock has 12 hours. It spins around and then 24-hour clock, right? Throw your clock away. You don't need that because you're going to do this all the time. This is where time does not even matter. You don't have to look on the clock to say, am I supposed to be doing this now? Okay. No, you're going to do this all the time. You don't need a clock anymore. And how do you do this? You do this by pledging and practicing and promoting it in with yourself, inside your family, your communities, and even on social media. How about that? How about when we're making those posts and we're saying things that we are thinking about, am I adding value? Am I adding more value to my wealth bank of nonviolence? Or am I being robbed? Or am I losing money? Is this the takeaway? I want to see this bank grow in each of us. We all should be so wealthy, spiritually, mentally, and physically when we get through doing this work together, that we forget what it was like when we were fighting one another, when we were at war, when we were taking lives, when we were using words to cut deep inside of someone, that they never forget what you said. I want us to never even remember that. I want that to be so long ago that nonviolence is the new wealth. Can you scream it from the mountaintop that Dr. King was talking about? Let's go up to the mountaintop together and scream it out to the people deep down in the valley that this is how we can live a better life together just on the right side of history. Today is January. Well, I don't want to say that because I don't know when this is going to play, but I'll just say this. Here in history right now, we are facing some moments. We're facing some moments where we keep remembering some things of the past that happened that did not show well as to who we are and how we love one another. Well, we can't change the past, but you can affect the future. Deborah, I believe you said that earlier. You said what we do can affect our future. You led with that. And I believe that. And I endorse those words because it's true. So what do we do today? Let's pledge today. Who? Everyone. Where? Everywhere. When? All the time. And how? Pledging, practicing, and promoting self through family, communities, and on social media. I'm Dr. Marty, and I want to thank you for an opportunity today.
Amen, sister. So what do you want us to pledge? Let's do it right now. You tell us the words and we're going to say it with you.
Okay, well, let's do this. We're gonna keep it simple. All right,
Yes.
Here we go. I pledge.
I pledge. Do it with us. Whoever's listening, do it
Yes,
with
that's
us.
right. Come on, do it with us.
Okay.
I pledge
I pledge
to not commit
to not commit
any violent acts
any violent acts
against self,
against self,
my family,
my family,
or my community.
or my community.
I stand
I stand
for love,
for love,
for peace,
for peace,
and humanity.
and for humanity.
That's the pledge.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Marty, for all that you do and all that you stand for, because you're making a difference in this world and you're helping us to ungun our hearts and to ungun our world. So this January, as you said, it's the beginning of the year. We pledge for nonviolence right now. We are going to all stand for nonviolence against ourselves and against everyone else. No, nonviolence is the way forward, and it is the way to peace. So thank you so much.
Nonviolence is what? It's the new wealth.
It's the new wealth.
Let's be rich together.
We're in. We're in. Thank you so much. And there are so many ways that we can highlight nonviolence this month of January 2025 and beyond. But right now, we have events coming up, we have programs, we have social media. And so there are lots of ways to highlight nonviolence. And one person who is helping to coordinate lots of this is John Raymer. So I'd like to ask John to tell us about the things that he's highlighting this month with the Compassion Games and in other ways as well. John Raymer.
Yeah. Thank you again, Deborah, and thank you, Marty, and thank you, Rick and Kurt, for that inspiration. For me, it's awareness plus action that's going to bring about the change. So making a pledge is really appropriate because just thinking about these things isn't enough. We need to interact and we need to act together. In fact, I have a book here that is my quotes, and you can tell I started trying to put in my favorite one, and then it ended up on every page. But here's one about nonviolence. I thought you'd appreciate. We all appreciate that. Dr. King said, "Nonviolence is the answer to the crucial political and moral questions of our time. The need for mankind to overcome oppression and violence without resorting to oppression and violence. Mankind must evolve for all human conflict a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation. The foundation of such a method is love." It's amazing how profound the wisdom of Dr. King and how enduring it is. And also, it's painful to realize how challenged we are and how ineffective we are at bringing this into our world. And that's why I think this is a pivotal moment. People are hurting. There's so much changing our world. And it's not just the politics and the policies, but the impact of COVID that we've all gone through, the effect of this AI technology changing everything, the corrosive effect of social media, all of these things are causing us to have to rethink our very role here. And for me, the joy in all this is our collective action for common good, actually learning how to work together. I'm a musician, and I've learned so much from it about what it takes to create harmony. What does it really take to listen to each other and work together? And January is a remarkable confluence of events. So let me tell you what I see in January, but let me just give you some background on the Compassion Games. There was an event in Seattle, where I live, called the Seeds of Compassion with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. It was 5 days free to the public, the largest event in the history of the state. And out of that, Seattle evolved the idea of becoming a compassionate city. And we pulled that off with the mayor and the city council. That's a whole other story. But one of the things that happened is we put the call out to other cities. And one city in particular responded was Louisville, Kentucky. And you'll see why I mentioned that, because that was an interesting year. They came out to Seattle. We honored them for their great work. Mayor Fisher at the time was a true leader of compassionate action. Then they went home and wrote me a letter claiming that they were the most compassionate city in the world, and that they'd be so till proven otherwise. In fact, they said they were so compassionate they'd come out to Seattle to help us beat them. I thought that was crazy. I loved it, because what was so revealing was when I would talk to people out on the streets and tell them about all the need for change and compassion. People would say, "That's really great. I'm really glad you're doing that." But when I tell them that the mayor of Louisville said they were the most compassionate city, people would say, "What? How can I get involved?" And I've come to see that We need to reinforce and develop what's already working in our communities. And part of the Compassion Games, which we started that year, which was the year of the Hunger Games, so this was an antidote. And Louisville has a particular place in all this because Jennifer Lawrence is from Louisville, but so is Muhammad Ali and the Ali Center. And I'm going to explain how that ties into what's happening this year in 2025 with Muhammad Ali's Ali Center and their Compassion Index. So we played the games, and what we realized is that you don't have to start new stuff. There's already good things happening in your community, but you can ignite through this we call co-opetition idea, which really comes from the Native Americans who had a potlatch tradition where they come together and attempt to outgive to each other. And that spirit of giving and that spirit of living the loving way as a way of life is so at the heart of the Compassion Games. In fact, the chairman of the Compassion Games International is Hereditary Chief Phil Lane, who shared with me those guiding principles that have been at the core of all this work on compassion, simply stated, starting from within, working in a circle, in a sacred manner, we heal and develop ourselves, our relationships, and the world. Now, this January is remarkable because not only is it Martin Luther King's birthday, and on January 15th, Pato and Antoinette are going to be celebrating Dr. King's birthday. But AmeriCorps and the United States government has honored Dr. King with a day of service. And that's always the third Monday in January. Well, this year, the third Monday in January is January 20th. So the day of the presidential inauguration is the MLK Day of Service. Maybe it's an accident. I don't know. But boy, what a great opportunity to put forward the wisdom and insight of Dr. King at a moment like this. And what's happening is the Ali Center is launching this compassion index that they've been doing. And they've reached out to us. And in fact, my wife Summer and I are headed to the East Coast. So January 15th is Dr. King's birthday. On the 16th, there's a press conference we'll be a part of, and so will Rick and many others, at the Idealist headquarters, launching this compassion index that the Ali Center is supporting. Then the 17th, which is actually Ali's birthday, kicks off this weekend of service that ends up on Monday with a day, not a day off, but a day on, a day of service that's that's happening at the same time as the inauguration. And Summer and I are going to be in Washington, D.C. at the inaugural. And we're going to be playing a very, I think, fun game. So I'm going to show you, this is the printout of the card we're going to hand out to people. And we're going to have our little cameras there, and we're going to be asking people a question there. And this is the 40 days of peace and greatness that get kicked off on January 20th. And it ends with the beloved community convergence on March 1st and 2nd. So we've got this 40-day time frame to play our hearts out. And not only just do these acts, but come back and report on them, because that's one of the key benefits of the games is we get to see what impact we're having. We measure our compassion strength. We use some metrics like the number of hours of service, number of people served, number of volunteers, but we also collect our insights. What have we learned about the effect of service on not just the people we serve, but on us who are doing the service? And now we're going to be able to use AI to summarize all of that like we've never done before. But this is the question that we're going to be asking people. All right, well, what can we do together to make America greater than it's ever been? And I can't wait to see what people say. And anytime they tell me what, I'm going to ask them, well, how are we going to do it? And we're really talking about overcoming, and it takes courage at this time. Love, kindness, and caring, they're not just ideals. They're at the very heart of who we are. So this is a moment unlike anything I've ever seen before, for us to bridge what has been with this uncertain future that's coming our way. And I know of nothing better to do than to reach out and touch people and demonstrate that your concerns are my concerns. We are in this together. Like Dr. King would say, we may have come on different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. I don't know if it was Dr. King, maybe it was John Lewis who said that, but that's come to be in this kind of space is one of the realities we need to face. So I'm here in service. The games are going to be happening. There's so many creative expressions. You can't lose the compassion games. We've got the secret agents of compassion. We identify, we call 6 dimensions of compassion. And we've been touching on all those here. It starts with compassion for yourself, then compassion for those we know, compassion for strangers, compassion for the systems. And that includes things like budgets in communities or the algorithms online. This is another tremendous part of our world today. So compassion for systems, compassion for future generations, and then compassion for all of life. Those 6 dimensions. So you could play as an individual. You could be anonymous. You don't need to take credit for your acts of compassion, but we want you to post them on the compassion report map so we can start to see what we're doing collectively. And then when we get together in the beloved community convergence, March 1st and 2nd, we're going to really celebrate what we're able to do together. And how do we really turn what we have into what we need so we can get the world that we want? This is the pressing question of our time. And I'm thrilled to be a part. And thank you, Deborah and Kurt, for all you doing. And Rick with you and Marty. I mean, we're in this together. This is ours to do. I'm going to switch here to the gallery view. Let me see if that turn off my speaker spotlight. So we're all in this together. This is the only way that I know that we're going to get out of this. The only way out is through.
Thank you so much, John, for all that you're doing. Can you give people a website to go to for the compassion?
Yeah. Go do this in one world. So if you go to compassiongames.org/one world, that's going to take you to our place. We've got this platform where we're connecting with each other, an impact hub, if you will, where people can sign up to play, take the Ali pledge. So Ali's putting out, Muhammad Ali Center, this idea of the word skill, compassion skill. Skill stands for self-compassion, kindness, inclusivity, leading with compassion, and lifting up the world. So then you can formulate a game plan. We have a ton of resources there to help folks, as well as then come back and report on the impact of what you've done. So we can start to see that story is not being told enough. Everybody knows this. Like Chief Perry says, your act of kindness could be an answer to somebody's prayer. People know this is the right way to be, but we don't tell those stories. Well, we want to use the games as an amplifier to amplify what is working in our world. And those people that are willing to take the courage to reach across the divide right now. I mean, we need to be willing to tell the truth. And it's painful to say it, but look, if we continue to drift further and further apart, we're really at risk here. So we need people that are brave enough, and it may seem radical that we cross these divides and befriend the other and rebuild the trust that our future depends upon. That's what I'm hoping to inspire in all this. The courage to speak up now. This is a Kairos moment. This is one of those unique moments. When I thought of me standing in front of the inauguration, encouraging people to play the compassion games, I said, are you crazy? And then I said, no, this is exactly the right time to be doing this.
Thank you, John.
Maybe so.
Thank you, John. And let's remember in all of this that Dr. King was fully committed to nonviolence. And sometimes we remember his work for freedom and for justice, and we forget about nonviolence. So let's make sure and uplift that concept along with all these beautiful, beautiful actions and intentions toward a world of compassion, a world of peace, a world of we. And, John, you were talking about the most compassionate city. Wouldn't it be amazing to have a contest for the most nonviolent city in America and the world? I live in Mexico, so we would appreciate that too.
Amen.
I want to tell you something special. So not only will you and Rick and Summer be in Washington, D.C. on January 20th, but you know who else has been invited to be there? Dr. Marty K. Casey. So tell us what you've been invited to, Marty.
Yeah, so we're still trying to make sure all of this works out. This weather, I'm literally snowed in my home. So if this stuff doesn't melt by next
Not
week,
going anywhere at the moment. No.
exactly. But I am excited because Al Sharpton with the National Action Network, he has decided to put together a program to make sure that we keep the honor and the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. uplifted on January 20th. And so on the opposite side of where everything is happening with the inauguration, there's going to be a rally and a peaceful march, just really honoring Dr. King. And so I've been invited through an organization to come and to speak and to be there. So we're trying to work out all of those logistics, but I'm excited about it. I pray that this all manifests because when I just think about the history of that, I've had an opportunity to be at the Dr. King Center several times under different circumstances or what have you. And every time is just a moment of I can't even put it into words, describe how you feel like Dr. King personally is whispering something in your ear saying, "Now go get the work done, go get it done." And so I need that right now. I need that motivation and that inspiration at a time such as this of what we're witnessing in the world. I need Dr. King to whisper in my ear. So I'm planning on being right there, John. And so I need a few of those cards so I can pass them out at the rally. Maybe we can link up or you can mail me some before I, get there. I'm excited about, and I have to say this, John, when you were talking about Ali, what I love about that is Muhammad Ali was a prize fighter, right? He did not fight individuals in the street to bring hurt and harm to them. And he was against fighting in the war and all of those things. He was a prize fighter, a fighter with purpose. And I think that that's something that when we talk about nonviolence, that's something we don't really mention a lot of. Like, you, there how how is this fighting that we're doing towards one another? Where's the purpose in it? There is none. There's absolutely no purpose.
And something else I'd like to tell you about Muhammad Ali was that he was appointed as a messenger of peace of the United Nations.
Yes.
Yes, yes. In fact, he said service to others is the rent you pay for your place here on earth. And that greatness is not how many people you knock down, but how many people you lift up.
Many people up. That's beautiful. And I want to this is one of my favorite quotes of Dr. King. I meant to share earlier if I have time. It says let me get this quote for Dr. King. Nonviolence is a way of life for courageous people. It is active nonviolence resistance to evil. It is aggressive spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. When you think about those words that Dr. King spoke, you have to be more courageous to be nonviolent than you do to be violent. You don't have, and so think about that thing of being wealthy again versus not having anything. If you don't, I mean, if you want to be poor, you don't have to do anything. You will, I guarantee you will land on being poor. But if you want to be rich, wealthy in the sense of not wealth in terms of dollars, but wealth in terms of humanity, of what we've been speaking about, you have to do something. You got to work at that. And so I'm just excited about just knowing the work that we're doing as evolutionary leaders. Dr. Kurt, what you have created here is it will surpass you in a lifetime of the years that you live breathing on this earth. This will continue to be your legacy. I want to personally thank you. Thank you so much for allowing a platform like this to exist where we can come and do the work.
No,
And John said it. This is a pivotal moment in time.
is a pivot. And I want to point out how Kurt has inspired us amongst the ELs to do. Here's an example of a compassion game that's come forward through the work of Rianne Eisler, which Kurt has honored and supported. So there's a call to create art for a partnership culture. So the whole idea here is we call the team that's putting this together is the creative resistance. And we're going to use our creative imagination to transcend our creative imagination and do the kind of art that shifts from a dominant culture to a partnership culture, inspired by Rianne's amazing work. And then the celebration, when we give out and it's going to be citizen voted, is going to be in honoring the 40th anniversary of her book, The Chalice and the Blade. I mean, we are weaving strategies together here. That's a great example of a way to play. And also, one other thing I forgot to mention, we have 2 awards this year. We've never done this before. The Inspiring Act Award and the Connector Champion. And I hope I'm not there yet, but I hope to give $1 million out to the most inspiring act. You can take it for yourself or double it and give $2 million to a nonprofit or a school. That's the idea. You can either take half of it for yourself or double it to give someone a cause that you care about. So we're using, you know what? We need to reach people where they're at. So we're going to find what it takes to get people being courageous enough to say, I don't want to live in a divided world. If we're going to go down, let's do it together and let's figure this out. And that's for me, living the loving way as a way of life. And this example, Deborah, Kurt, Rick, Marty, you guys give me hope. We're not done
And
yet.
this is John's invitation for us all to join in the magic canoe that you see him behind him on his screen.
Moving between worlds, from no longer to a world not yet.
Thank you so much. So we just have time for just like 1 minute from each of you. What's your final word? Rick, what's your final word on nonviolence?
Wow. So I'm just so moved and inspired for everybody who has been on this panel, each person. And I guess nonviolence is a way of life for me, and it becomes the way that we together can succeed and improve our lives together by having a we that embodies the consciousness of being part of the ultimate confluence of our desires and our life together. Of course, I didn't even think about that
Right?
in advance, but
And leaves no one behind.
yes, it's all about we, and nonviolence is the way that we can all get there. Thank you.
Thank you. John, final word.
Well, when we choose compassion over nonviolence, we're taking a step towards the beloved community that Dr. King envisioned. So unite humanity, restore Mother Earth.
Thank you. Marty K. Casey.
Well, nonviolence is the new wealth. I invite you to be one of the wealthiest people on this earth with me. And me and you together make we.
Thank you so much to the 3 of you for being our featured speakers today. You all have such beautiful hearts, and you don't just sit there with your beautiful hearts. You get out there and you do everything you can to share them with the world and make this world a better place for every human being and all life on Earth. I want to also mention 2 of the champions of We the World have been Desmond Tutu and also Jane Goodall. And Dr. Jane Goodall just received the Medal of Freedom from President Biden just the other day. So we include in nonviolence, we include our 4-legged friends, our winged friends, all animal and plant life on this planet. We are all in this together, and we are going to make a difference. So I want to encourage you to share about nonviolence, share all of these projects, share them on social media. We're doing that with the Evolutionary Partners Network every day during the month of January. This is about nonviolence and all of these beautiful initiatives that are going to make the world a more compassionate, more loving place for us, for we, all of us, and all life. And may peace prevail on earth. So now I want to turn it back to Dr. Kurt Johnson because we have a special treat. We've got a little icing on the cake here because we have another evolutionary leader who is dedicated to nonviolence. And she has a very important concept of how violence begins at home in the family. And so I would like Dr. Kurt Johnson to introduce a special segment that he's created with Dr. Riane Eisler. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks, Deborah, and thanks so much for hosting those discussions with the evolutionary leaders on nonviolence. Now, by chance, just as you mentioned, I had an opportunity to speak to another iconic evolutionary leader whose schedule happened to not make her available for the discussion that you just hosted. And that is Riane Eisler, who is the author of so many of the pivotal books on domination consciousness versus partnership consciousness, and how violence scales from the experience of violence in the family to myriad other levels in societies all around the world, and who has a program connecting the dots from family violence to violence in society, also airing during the season of programming on violence, on nonviolence that we've just brought to you now. And it's with several of the guests that Deborah just interviewed. So I took the opportunity to bring her into this discussion. I want to share that now before we close out this program on behalf of the Evolutionary Leaders Partners Network, the Evolutionary Leaders, and Humanity's Moment of Choice. So over now to my short discussion with Riane Eisler. So Riane, thanks so much for joining this conversation. As I've just noted in moving to the conclusion of this program, with distinguished members of the evolutionary leaders community, of which you are also a part, because you're the author of so many of the most pivotal books on this topic. Your iconic Chalice and the Blade, 1987, along with The Partnership Way, 1990, The Power of Partnership, 2002, The Real Wealth of Nations, 2007, and most recently, and so important to this topic, Nurturing Our Humanity, How Domination and Partnership Shape Our Brains, Lives, and Future, Oxford University Press, 2019. So Riane, talk to us about violence and how it scales from deep causal roots, like violence-related trauma in the family.
Well, my work is really, as you know, about connecting the dots, including some of the dots that are immense, like childhood, like gender, like family, which, if you really think about it, are either marginalized or just ignored in the social categories and therefore in our thinking that we've inherited from more authoritarian, from more violent, from what I call more domination-oriented times. Now, I was interviewed for the Scientific American, as you know, on the roots of authoritarianism and of violence in childhood trauma. Now, that doesn't mean that childhood trauma is the only thing involved here, but it is fundamental. And there's beginning to be some consciousness of that, for example, in some of the film stories that we see these days of children who grow into adults who are haunted by the traumas of their childhood. But that's just part of the problem. The real problem is what it does to social policy, to economic policy, to family policy. And as I wrote in my books, you mentioned it, The Power of Partnership, trying to heal ourselves by just focusing on ourselves, on self-help, if you will. It's like trying to go up on a down elevator. We're constantly being pushed back by the culture, by the system, by the institutions around us. So the first step, and this is so vital, is changing our consciousness, changing our worldview. And I've proposed a frame for that, which is the partnership domination social scale. That really the struggle for our future is not between right and left and religious and secular and Eastern and Western and Northern and Southern, capitalist and socialist, all considered categories that we've inherited from more authoritarian, more violent, more domination-oriented times. That it's really between the partnership system and that configuration and the domination system and that configuration. And there are trends in both directions. We are in a period of regression in many world regions towards the domination system, but there's also in bits and pieces, and that's the problem. Whereas the domination system has a frame which includes gender, always, whether it's the Taliban, whether it's the MAGA movement, whether, in the United States, whether it's the fundamentalist Iran, whether it was Nazi Germany, whether it was Stalin's former Soviet Union, whether it was the Messiah of Africa. The domination system always is based really on not only man over man, but man over woman, race over race, religion over religion, tribe over tribe, nation over nation. And there are only two alternatives. You either dominate or you're dominated. And what my research shows is that there is an alternative once we free ourselves, once we start connecting the dots, connecting the configurations that transcend all of these old fragmenting categories, which, by the way, marginalize or ignore women, children, the majority of humanity, family, where we all live. Once we free ourselves of that and start connecting the dots, we have a much better chance of really effectively changing these dominator traditions of violence that is built into the system, whether it's wife or child violence against them, spanking, beating, etc., whether it's abuse of employees, whether it's pogroms, whether it's lynchings, whether it's aggressive warfare. It's built into the system because how else, if you really think about it, can you maintain these hierarchies of domination?
So, yeah, Rian, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. And also, we'll all be watching for your Connecting the Dots program in this month, which is also being done by a group of the Synergy Circles and Collaboratories of the Evolutionary Leaders. So, thank you so much.
Well, I hope that the initiative to start with families can really change the dynamic because violence, we know, is learned. And the learning starts in families. And that's what neuroscience tells us. And that's what the ACEs studies tell us. So we've got to pay attention. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks so much, Rian, for helping us conclude this program. And just to know, to make it easy for our listeners, Rian's program on connecting the dots from family violence to violence in society will also be joining this video at the Evolutionary Leaders YouTube channel, which is located at youtube.com/evolutionary leaders. That's youtube.com evolutionary leaders. So thank you all so much for joining us, and special thanks to our special guests, Dr. Marty K. Casey of UnGUN Institute, John Raymer of the Compassion Games and One World, Rick Ulfik of We the World and We.net, Rian Eisler of the Center for Partnership Systems, and of course the Reverend Deborah Moldow, Director of the Evolutionary Leaders, for hosting our discussion. Now, in the banners that close out this video, you're going to be able to see all of their links. And for the links to the January events that we've been talking about, you can see those at evolutionaryleaders.net and also at Facebook at Evolutionary Leaders in Service to Conscious Evolution. So Humanity's Moment of Choice looks forward to letting you know where we'll be continuing our 2025 programming. And you'll be able to find that out also at evolutionaryleaders.net and also at lightonlight.us. That's lightonlight.us, which has been the sponsor of this program running on Voice America for many years. So in the meantime, watch for 2 spotlight videos that we have made from this video. And the first, these will also be at Evolutionary Leaders YouTube channel. The first is Pledging to Nonviolence with Marty K. Casey and the Reverend Deborah Moldow. And the second is The Courage of Humanity's Heart, a call to unite and heal, with a review of all of these January events with Deborah and John Raymer of the Compassion Games. Now, you'll also be able to find out about this messaging as well at a companion network of ours, the Holo Movement, at holomovement.net. That's HOLO movement.net at their media page. So it's nonviolence, kindness, and partnership that we're championing for January 2025. And as Dr. Marty K. Casey said, not just for then, but for always. So join us in that and in this campaign. So stay tuned to where we're going now with Humanity's Moment of Choice. Lots of love from all of us, and be safe and be well.